Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me in another video. So I think brands have been very predictable lately in that they have been releasing a lot of bags once they hit that 20-year anniversary point. Just in 2025 alone, we've talked about several of these bags. I actually did a video on handbags that were released in 2025 as well as anticipating this move. I did a video on bags from 20 years ago, and I kind of wanted to take a look at, as we are anticipating the spring-summer 2026 collections, I want to take a look at bags that we saw 20 years ago. I honestly can't see a lot of the bags on this list being re-released. I don't know if they necessarily hit today, but I do think there are some recurring themes, recurring trends. Maybe if a bag isn't totally released, certain trends, certain design elements from that era will be brought back. Now, this isn't the case with every brand. For instance, Celine brought back the Phantom bag much earlier. The reason behind that was more so Michael Ryder coming back to the brand as he was once with the brand during the Phoebe Philo era. So it was just this kind of full circle moment, and it was updated with a smile, new proportions, and a flap. But we have been seeing a lot of brands do a lot of these kinds of anniversary handbags once a bag hits that 20-year mark. It is a vintage bag at this point. It's like these brands want to revisit these styles again. Is it a cash grab? Potentially. Are a lot of these brands banking on the nostalgia factor? Definitely. But I also think younger generations also find certain appeals with these styles that they may have not had a chance to grow up with. So I think there's that factor as well. Either way, it's a strategic move for a lot of these brands. I thought we'd talk about some of these bags from 2006, and maybe we'll make this an ongoing series because I definitely could have made this much longer, but just for the sake of this video, if you guys want to see part 2, let me know. But the first bag I want to talk about is the Givenchy Nightingale bag. So this was a bag we saw for fall 2006. It was during the Riccardo Tisci era. He had just been appointed recently, and this was really his first major it bag for the brand. Of course, later on we would see the Antigona, the Pandora, other bags from the brand, but the Nightingale was his first major creation. It was worn on Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, Ashley Olsen, Kendall Jenner. It was such a hot bag for that period. I think it also set the tone for a lot of Givenchy bags that we would see. Now, this style definitely a lot slouchier, has that kind of like supple duffel bag look with the dual top handles, but then that thicker shoulder strap. Could be like a great everyday bag, a great work bag. It was like an era where like bigger bags were definitely the style. You can see the evolution of handbags moving from that Y2K style to like the boho style to this. And I think there's something about Riccardo Tisci's era, which was a little bit more romantic. There was gothic edginess about his style that was very in during that period, even in like the ready-to-wear, the Riccardo Tisci era, like ready-to-wear, or even if I think about a brand like Balenciaga, like Nicolas Ghesquier. Speaking of which, Balenciaga, I think, was still going strong with the city bag and creating multiple iterations, new color sizes, different finishes, proportions. But I really just wanted to take a moment and shout out some of the amazing collections from 2006, more specifically something about the harness boots just take me back. I just thought in my teenage years, these were like the coolest, most badass boots, and they are like forever ingrained in my mind. I remember seeing Mary-Kate as a teenager wearing these, and I remember just thinking, wow, she just looks like the coolest girl. Of course, I could never afford them. In like a couple years, I would buy Jeffrey Campbell's. That was like more of what I could afford, but I definitely dreamed about these ultra like sky high platform boots. Definitely not something we've been seeing in fashion recently. I feel like the trend in fashion has been completely the opposite, like very low profile. So the next style I want to talk about is the Chanel quilted timeless clutch. So this was for fall 2006, and this was a beautiful little clutch. It has the signature Chanel quilting at the top. There's that CC logo, not as visible as the flap styles, but this was a bag worn by Paris Hilton, Ashley Olsen. I think it's kind of an underrated style. I think there is an elegance about it, and I think a timelessness that I think still can hit today. I don't think Chanel, though, is one of these brands that has been doing a lot of these kinds of reissue bags. Of course, there is the famous reissue, but I think it is a gorgeous style. It's one of these bags you can pick up on the pre-love market. Another worthwhile mention from that era is the Chanel Coco Cabas, here seen on the fall 2006 runway. I was actually reminded of the style when I talked about recently winged bags. This has more of like a winged tote shape with a chain strap, but this was a style that was loved by Cameron Diaz to Lily Allen. Chanel also brought back a very similar design for Resort 2026, so more of like an evolution on this sort of style. But if you wanted the look for less, definitely worthwhile searching for these bags on the pre-love market. Next, I want to talk about the Hermes Kelly Long. So 2006, the creative director was Jean-Paul Gaultier. I think he was quite famous for his love of the East-West silhouette. Of course, famously designed the shoulder Birkin, which we've seen a resurgence of that style. For spring-summer 2006, a lot of what we're seeing on the runway is this Kelly Long. It's like a larger clutch, East-West clutch like the Kelly Cut, but it would be interesting to see if they make these styles from that runway collection readily available again. I don't want to say available, but at least offered to Hermes's VIPs and long-standing clients that express some kind of interest. But it'll be interesting to see if they bring back more of these East-West styles. Next, I want to talk about Louis Vuitton. So of course, we've seen in 2025, the mania around Murakami. Louis Vuitton has been pushing multiple iterations of the style. But if we go back 20 years, or like fall 2006, Louis Vuitton took the famous Murakami print and supersized it. I wouldn't put it past Louis Vuitton. They love reissuing styles. You even could see like in the ready-to-wear category, this being like a major comeback. But here we have the style in this messenger bag with like this elongated flap. I feel like a lot of these elongated flap styles we've been seeing from the row with the nuance. Celine also has a new bag like this, but this style also came in a bum bag. I feel like I could see this supersized monogram and the multicolor coming back. Another defining bag from this era, and I also just think moment in general, were these mirror bags. Now, Louis Vuitton recently did like a re-release of these types of bags, but again, there's something about this iconic moment in 2006 with Kim Kardashian and Paris Hilton being besties. Kim with the gold, Paris with the silver. I also think this was during like the rise of Kim Kardashian. Of course, they did release recently, I think like last year. I just had to mention this because it was like, I think, an iconic moment in 2006. Another very popular style in 2006 was the Dior Gua Sha. Of course, we all remember the Dior saddlebag, especially when it was re-released in 2019. It sent shockwaves in the handbag world. And I think there was something about how this bag was re-released. It was done in such a major way with a lot of influencer marketing. There was just like a major push when they re-released this bag. It was, of course, such an iconic bag from an iconic era. LVMH, again, loves these blast from the past moments. I don't know if it would be interesting to see if they do some kind of revamping of this style for 2006 or 2026, because the saddlebag was still enjoying a lot of popularity. This style felt a little bit more relevant for the time because it was slouchier, it was more relaxed, it wasn't as like structured and hard. And I think a lot of people critique the saddlebag because it is quite difficult to get in and out of, whereas this, it's a little bit more relaxed and it's got that like massive buckle, feels quite like Western and boho, which were very much themes that were popular back then and as well as popular right now. Next is the Fendi B bag. Again, similar kind of energy. It's got these two massive buckles, very oversized. It had this flap closure, very of that era. It feels quite nostalgic looking at this bag. If you're someone that loves that 2000s, mid 2000s, like maximalist era, I think this bag definitely embodies that. Finally, I wanted to highlight the Chloe Edith bag. What's interesting, we actually saw this bag re-released a few years ago, but Chloe again has been known for re-releasing, be it the Paddington earlier this year, the bracelet. I don't know if they would do this style just because they did re-release it, but it was under a different creative director. They had a campaign with Gillian Anderson. So yeah, that's my video for today. And I think it is fascinating to see how a lot of bags from the past, you know, are brought back, or sometimes you will see like inspiration, because fashion does seem to have this interest in looking back 20 years, but be it the move to more like slouchy bags or the greater interest in these boho bags. In 2006, the style of the time was still quite like boho, and I definitely think that slouchy shape was still one of the more popular styles, but also quite interesting the use of like massive buckles and hardware from Dior and Fendi. Even if I just think about how people wore fashion back in the day, like these baby doll dresses with this extra large belt buckle, kind of fell in line with this boho thing that was going on. But I also think fashion was not quite there yet, but moving towards this indie girl indie hipster look. There were signs of it maybe in the style of like Mary-Kate Olsen or Nicole Richie, but I think what was very much in was this kind of like disheveled party girl look. I think of that very iconic moment in 2006, Britney, Lindsay, Paris, like that girls' night out famous moment. But yeah, it's just fun to look at these bags of the past. I feel like I could do an extended series, but these were some of the styles that we saw in 2006. Do you think any of these bags will come back, or are you relieved that these styles were discontinued? Please let me know down below. Thank you so much for joining me in another one, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!